Hey, what's going on, everyone? Vega here for SerpentX Tech, and I have a Jingle miner. This is the 1.2 terahash miner, a little bit dusty, and it's been shutting down on me, or it will hash for about 15, 17 minutes and then shut down on me. I'm not sure if it's the chips within. I don't think it's the actual ASIC chip, because this one has the BM1370, but it's something else. And I just want to just tear it down. Like, I don't think I've seen anybody ever dig into this thing and tear it down. I want to tear it down, do a fresh thermal paste on it, and see if we can get it to live more than 17 minutes. On the sides here, you can see that we got 4 screws on both sides. Then, from what I'm seeing here, because there's a split down the middle, is we should be able to just pull that apart. So let me undo this antenna, point you guys downwards, and let's just get started. All right, very simply, just twist off the antenna, nothing special there. And then we need to attack these 4 screws right here. Let me see if I can get you guys to zoom in a little bit more. That's a little better, a little bit pixelated, but that's a little bit better. So let's attack these 4 screws. They're probably soft metal, so I would be very careful not to strip these guys out, because usually when I deal with ASICs from a different country, the screws are super soft. So I like to really put down some force, vertically on it while unscrewing, or at least getting it started. I don't know where my LTT screwdriver is for some reason. I went on a trip to Mine Disrupt, and it's probably in my backpack. So I just grabbed my iFixit kit screwdriver, and with these 4 screws removed, we can start to see the internals. And it's just your normal board. You can see we got heat sinks on the back here. Good job, Jingle Miner. I don't think, again, I've seen anybody actually tear into this guy. But we're not going to be able to pull this guy out, at least with the fan on. We might be able to pull it out if we take the fan off. That is certainly tight. That's going to be interesting. Looks like we have some screws back here. See the standoffs? So 4 standoffs. I'm pretty sure we're going to have to tear these rubber pads off of this. Or maybe it's a plug. I'm not sure. Let's see if we can get one. Yep, it's a sticky guy, but there's nothing, no screw there for us to dig into. If I can show it, there it is. There's no screw behind there. So I just removed that little foot for no reason. So those are just plastic standoffs to keep it off the metal casing. But it doesn't have a lot of room to move. Like, I can lift up. You can see the spring tension. So maybe we are going to have to attack it that way. I mean, I can get a flathead in here to push down this guy right here to pop that off. But we need to do the other side to get to the other spring. So it's spring tension that's holding that heat sink on. That's probably why it's thermally having issues. Not really a great heat sink. Personally, probably most of you already moved your Jingle miner or the main board and everything to a 3D printed housing or case. So that way it's open air. I think the metal, in my opinion, was a good idea for if you're using it for heat dissipation. But I'm not seeing that as far as the design goes. So here's the other plate off. You can see more of the heat sinks and everything. Again, these plastic things on the bottom here are just keeping it elevated off. Heat sinks are touching the outer shell. So maybe the outer shell is dissipating some of that heat. You got your main ESP32 screen right here, or your T display. There's your fan connector right over here. So where's my spring at? Okay, I see it. So it's right here. So I need to figure out a way to carefully hold both sides down while pulling that out. There we go. Boom. There's the shield. That's being held down, though, by the antenna. The antenna's tight on that, so I can't pull that out too far. And, okay, the standoffs are doing something. Even though I can't access them from the bottom, they are doing something. So I need to get a little wrench here to take this little nut off. Let me do that right now. So this guy is just a little 8mm. So if I put my little 8mm on there and twist, I can loosen that up just enough to where it's not sticking, at least, to the front cover, or shouldn't be. Come on, let go. Maybe it's the back side that's still hanging on to it. But yeah, it won't let go. Is it the back side? What is holding you in? All right, so just FYI, I pushed it in. So that way I can lift very carefully, if possible. Try to lift this cover off, but something's getting caught on this side now. All right, that was a bit annoying because if you look behind the T-display, you can only push the antenna so far back, right? And it gets pinched against the backside of the T-display. See that? And then that's hooking, the actual threads are hooking on this two-part groove. There's two sections of it. You see it right here? So that's a bit annoying, a little bit of a barcode there for everybody to know what kind of device this is. We got our little buttons as well that push on the display nodules or these buttons on the side here. And now we can just do what we normally do for our bit axes, nerd axes, jingle miners, the whole 9 yards. So unpin the 4-pin connector. This fan is a little bit weird, but these are spring tension, I believe. Be careful when trying to break it loose. It's a two-handed operation. Once you get one side up, you push and kind of lift gently. Remember, you got thermal paste trying to hang on to it too. See, now we're caught over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my needle nose and push on those clamps, right? Push this down. Push on those little clamps right there, if I can get some good lighting, and then let it back up. But I would prefer a better heat sink than this, to be honest. But it works. I mean, it gets the job done. And you can see the little mini heat sinks on the VRMs or the voltage regulator and stuff. And here's your locking ring that just fell out of the backside of your antenna. So that goes on this guy. That's kind of hidden now. Come back out. Yeah, that goes on this guy on the inside. And then your locking nut on the outside. But let me get some needle nose now, printing their own modules. But if you take out this T display, probably makes it a little bit easier. There you go. You can see the antenna here. Technically, you can use it without the antenna. The antenna just gives you like a little bit better range, I guess you could say. But yeah, so all of these have these antennas. So you can use this antenna on a number of them. Like, so if this T display goes bad, you replace it, you're good to go. And then you got access to your 4 screws that hold this thing to the chassis. And just take those out and you can replace it. There is an icon down here on the bottom. You see that? So we got Jingle Miner. And then it says in the bottom right, can't see it, Open Hardware. Interesting. Version 2.12. So with some needle nose tweezers, you should be able to get in there and compress this guy down so it can go through. And you might have to use the flat side. Be careful with the SMDs around. You do not want to pop one of them suckers off and be SOL. So just take your time. Tweezers could work, but I like needle nose. Whatever, you know, obviously fits the job. The bigger ones probably wouldn't work in this instance. All right, there we go. Carefully lift off. There you go. All right. Interesting. They got some sort of thermal tape. No, that's just some padding. Some sort of padding, I guess, to keep it level. It's the same Z height as the chip. So that way you're not putting too much pressure on it. But I did notice that I feel like these spring mechanisms are just not giving it enough tension or retention onto the die. Because every time I moved the Jingle Miner, I brought it over here to flash it because I did flash my Nerd OS custom firmware so I could dual pool mine with it onto it. But it's not hitting the same 1.2 terahash and it keeps having issues. But it was having issues beforehand on a Jingle mining firmware. But we need to clean up all this thermal paste. Regardless, looks pretty dry. Be careful with any SMDs around. But yeah, we need to clean up this die, clean up the heatsink, and then reapply some better thermal paste. And the only thermal paste that I have that's around that I can use right now is Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut Extreme. But that will do, it's overkill for this, but that will do the job just fine. And I'm going to put it on a little bit extra thick so that way the springs have more push against it, but we'll see how that turns out and stuff like that. I mean, everything else looks pretty good. The heat sinks, you can see the chips it's on, looks like voltage regulator and inductor, and then whatever the chips are back here that it's sitting on, looks like it's right behind the voltage regulator and inductor, as well as behind the actual main 1370 chip as well. Then it's pushing against the outer frame to hopefully dissipate some of that heat into the metal casing, which is pretty smart. Cleanup almost done, but a light dusting on the sides here because it's a downdraft cooler. Wouldn't hurt, right? Because it blows out these little side vents here. The light dusting, everything's cleaned up, chips cleaned up. So now we're going to apply some Crowd Knot Extreme. A quick application with the spatula, waste not, want not, and our die is sufficiently coated. Whatever edges I missed will get smushed out. Left it again a little bit thick because, again, I don't think the spring retention on this guy is doing us some justice. And time for assembly. If you wanted my personal opinion on what thermal paste you should use, I prefer Duronot from Thermal Grizzly, but any thermal paste will do. And at least for these chips or these type of applications, I mean, you're not setting overclocking records and stuff like that. But I mean, if you're really pushing your different miners, whether they're bit axis, nerd Q axis to their limits, yeah, good thermal paste always helps. I'm gonna start with the most difficult part, which is trying to get this all back together, specifically the antenna that gave us a hard time coming apart. And the buttons and stuff. I got to put that locking ring on and stuff. So I'm going to work from this side forward and see if I can figure out how to get this all together. But I got that kind of lined up in this position, as you can see from right here. And I'm going to try to smush it down while also leaving the buttons in place, because the buttons are going to be another hard part. If they sit in there like that, maybe I'll flip it upside down and like a GPU, flip it this way. I'll show it to you here in a minute, but let's leave that just like that. Let's get the heatsink back on. Only goes one way. Plug in your fan first, right? And then now it's just a matter of lining it up with the holes. This is going to be the tedious part. And then pushing the spring guys back into their spot. Boom. Okay. So again, not making contact the way I would like 100%. Let's see if I can get a good shot of that. So it is, you can see the pink slightly right there. And I mean, it's holding, but I would like a little bit more tension. So I did put it a little bit thicker because of that. Let's see if you get a different shot from this side. Look right below this black part right there. You see it, just a slight little bit of pink. So we'll see if that gives us enough tension that we need. Just pushing the spring, making sure they're good to go. They're holding. All right, so now to tackle this part, let's go, because we're being held in by the 4 screws. Let's try going this way. Oh, without losing the button. Our little plastic piece up. It's supposed to push on the button. Very tedious working on these things, but whether they're bit axes or whatever, they are fun. All right, we got the heat sink through. Okay, now we're stuck on the antenna part. So this is the part that's going to kick my butt. Okay, almost tempted to just crush you in there, buddy. Yeah, so that's going to be the hard part right there. Let me work on this, and I'll tell you of any tips or tricks, but I think it's just going to be force. Getting the grooves in the right spot and forcing it, or getting the threads in the right spot and then forcing it. Honestly, that was the worst maze game I've ever had to play. I just took the antenna off. I cheated. Okay, I cheated because there's no way to get the antenna in there while also getting the heat sink, the chip heat sink in there. So the antenna's out. I'm gonna use it on something else. It's not really going to kill it because it's right next to the Wi-Fi. But if we look at this hole, the cutout on the top side, you have to fit this guy in there somehow and then angle the miner in there so that way this heatsink can fit in there. And it just was not working. I don't know how Jingle Mining did it at the factory, but they obviously have a procedure or a way to do it. It just wasn't working for me. So antenna's out. The T-display would be just fine. I think the antenna is pretty cool. Probably helps out with, better connectivity in the long run or, range-wise. But in this case, it's not going to help us here. And the main thing is, will this miner get back to its normal quality hash rate rather than what it was doing before? That's the whole point. Didn't see anything burnt on the PCB, which was the second most important part of this teardown. Other than replacing the thermal paste. Didn't see anything wrong with the traces. Didn't see any burnt SMDs. So yeah, and I just did that backwards. Son of a biscuit. No wonder. I put this plate on wrong, missing the port. That's why it's bowing right now. But yeah, I mean, are your thoughts of the Jingle Miner prices or products that they offer? I like the BTC hash card. I think they had a script one as well, but I haven't got my hands on one. What are your thoughts about these various miners? Let me know down in the comment section below, because I am curious to hear from you. Hopefully I didn't break the Type-C port on the T display by putting that pressure on there. The plate did move, but I'm just saying, not exactly a good, that was a stupid move on my part. So I'm gonna put this back together, get it powered up, and give you a quick summary. Teardown is easy. You have, the hardest part is the stupid antenna that won't allow you to kind of take this thing apart without some issue. Because remember, it was getting caught on the threads, and then trying to get it back in was just as difficult because one side has, like, there's no opening for it to sit in. Maybe you have a Dremel and you can cut off just a little bit of the edge. So you see that curvature right here. Maybe you can cut that little edge right there and it will just slide in just fine from up top as you sandwich the device together or the plates together. But in my case, it was just driving me nuts. So I'm just going to go without it. Oh, and another thing, the reason I call it like a maze puzzle is not only trying to fit that antenna in this hole, right? You also had to not lose these buttons, which I lost a couple times. So just became a bit tedious. But if you hold the front cover, like, you know, downwards, and then you put this on, sliding the heat sink in first, then you'll be good. But to get the antenna in there, I'm sure some of you talented people will be able to do that no problem. So let's go see if this thing stays hashing. So far, so good. I had to drop down the clocks originally because it kept restarting, and I thought that was the problem. Maybe my clocks were bad, but it's been hashing. I got distracted by work, and it's been hashing for almost 2 hours. Well, at least an hour and a half, as you can see there. Doing about 1 terahash, but now we can overclock it and make it run a little bit better. Let me see if this is heating up. So the frame is a little bit warm, so those heat sinks on the back are doing something. And it wasn't the power supply as I thought, even though our voltage is a little bit lower than I would like. So now it's just a matter of connecting to it, line, and tuning it. And I showed you how to do that in a number of other videos. But that should do it for this one. So what are your thoughts on the Jingle Miner? What are your thoughts on the BitX, the Nerd Axis, the NerdQ Axis, decentralized mining as a whole? You know, what are your thoughts? And I know there's miners out there that are closed source and stuff like that, not open source. And I know the debate about that, but this video is just focused on tearing this thing down, showing you the inside, showing you how it looks, as well as, well, getting it back up and running with some fresh thermal paste on the die. Matter of fact, look at the temperatures. 55 degrees C. Originally, that thing would be at 68, 67 already, just doing the 1 gigahash, so we'll see. But that's going to do it for today's video, so do me a favor on the way out. Hit that like button, make sure to get subscribed, hit the notification bell to stay up to date, as well as check out additional links in the description to help support the channel on what we do here, and I'll catch you next one. Take care.